The gavel cracked like a bone snapping in the stale air of the courtroom. And with that single blow, my marriage shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces that no amount of alimony could ever glue back together. I sat there, Serafina Hale, 34 years old and staring down the barrel of freedom I never asked for. My silk blouse clinging to my skin from the sweat of a battle I thought I'd won years ago. Tommy's eyes met mine across the polished oak table, cold and final, as the judge droned on about asset division. But all I heard was the echo of his last whisper from the night before, I can't pretend anymore. Sera. Not with you. Not like this. I walked out of that Seattle courthouse into a drizzle that matched the ache blooming in my chest. My heels clicking against wet pavement like accusations. The city blurred around me. Skyscrapers leaning in with their indifferent glass faces. And I wondered how I'd let it come to this after 12 years of building a life that felt more like a cage with velvet bars. Divorce. The word tasted like ash on my tongue. Bitter and final. Yet somewhere deep inside, a flicker stirred. Small and defiant. Whispering that this end might just be the door to something rawer. Something real. I hailed a cab. Slid into the back seat with my leather briefcase clutched like a shield. And told the driver to take me to the airport. No plan. No destination. Just the pull of the unknown tugging at my ribs. By evening, I'd landed in San Francisco. The fog rolling in like an old friend wrapping me in its cool embrace. The hotel room overlooked the bay. Waves lapping against the pier in rhythmic sighs that mirrored my own uneven breaths. I poured a glass of scotch from the minibar. The amber liquid burning a path down my throat. And sank onto the edge of the bed. Memories flooded and unbidden, Tommy's laugh in our kitchen. His hand on my waist during those early dinners. The way he'd drift away when I'd talk about my cases. His eyes glazing over as if my ambition was a foreign language. I had been a rising star at Hale & Associates. Fighting for corporate giants in boardrooms that smelled of cigar smoke and old money. But at home, I was just Sarah. The wife who tried too hard to fill the silence. Now, with the ink still drying on the papers that freed me, I felt unmoored. Adrift in a sea of what-ifs. A sigh escaped me, long and heavy, as I traced the rim of my glass. What now? The question hung in the air, thick as the mist outside. The next morning, sunlight pierced the curtains like an insistent alarm, pulling me from a fitful sleep haunted by dreams of empty chambers and echoing vows. I dressed in my armor, a crisp white shirt and pencil skirt that hugged my frame just right, and headed to the offices of Blackwell and Stern, a firm I'd heard whispers about during law school. They specialized in high-stakes mergers, the kind that could make or break empires. And I needed that edge, that rush to drown out the hollow in my gut. The elevator ride up to the 23rd floor hummed with possibility, the doors sliding open to reveal a lobby of marble and ambition, receptionists tapping away at sleek keyboards. I smoothed my hair, straightened my shoulders, and approached the desk, my voice steady despite the tremor in my pulse. Serafina Hale. I have an appointment with Mr. Blackwell. He was older than I'd imagined. Silver hair slicked back. Eyes sharp as a scalpel behind wire-rimmed glasses. We talked for an hour in his corner office. The Golden Gate Bridge sprawling defiant against the horizon through floor-to-ceiling windows. I laid out my credentials. The wins that had padded my resume. The intuition that had turned losing cases into triumphs. He leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers, and finally nodded. We need someone with your fire, Ms. Hale. Start Monday. And welcome to the big leagues. Just like that, the pieces began to shift. I left with a contract in hand. The weight lifting slightly from my shoulders. Replaced by a cautious spark. Lunch was a solitary affair at a harborside cafe. Seagulls wheeling overhead as I picked at a salad. The salt air mingling with the faint tang of regret. But beneath it, excitement simmered. A quiet promise that this city, with its layers of fog and fortune, might hold the reinvention I craved. Weeks blurred into a rhythm of depositions and deadlines. The firm's glass walls echoing with the clatter of keyboards and murmured strategies. I threw myself into the work. Dissecting contracts until my eyes burned. Negotiating terms that left opponents reeling. Blackwell noticed. Pulling me aside one afternoon as rain pattered against the panes. You're a natural. Hale. That merger with Technova? You saved us millions. His praise landed warm. A balm to the scars still fresh from Seattle. My bank account swelled with bonuses. Investments ID tucked away during leaner years beginning to compound in ways that whispered of wealth beyond dreams. By month's end, I had closed a deal that netted the firm 7 figures. And in the quiet of my new apartment overlooking the bay, I allowed myself a rare smile. The divorce had stripped me bare. But here, in this glittering chaos, I was forging gold from the ruins. It was during a late-night strategy session that I first saw her. Angelica Ruiz, lead counsel on a parallel case, swept into the conference room like a storm wrapped in silk. 32. With curves that her fitted blazer accentuated without apology, and dark curls cascading over one shoulder, she carried an energy that crackled, drawing every eye in the room. Her laugh cut through the tension as she bantered with a junior associate, low and throaty, and when her gaze landed on me, it held, brown eyes warm with curiosity. Serafina Hale, right? I've heard about you. The closer. Her voice was smooth, laced with a faint California lilt, and she extended a hand, her grip firm, lingering just a beat too long. Heat flushed my cheeks, unexpected and disarming, and I murmured a thanks, my heart stuttering in a way it hadn't since college crushes long buried. We dove into the files, her insights sharp as a blade, but every brush of her arm against mine sent ripples through me, a current I tried to ignore. As the meeting wrapped, she leaned close, breath minty and warm. Drinks later? To celebrate that Technova win. I hesitated, the old caution rising like bile, but nodded. Why not? The night was young. And so, perhaps, was I. The bar was a dimly lit haven tucked into the alleys of the Mission District. Murals splashed across brick walls like forgotten dreams. We claimed a corner booth, the hum of conversation a soft backdrop to our unfolding words. Angelica ordered tequilas neat, her fingers tracing the glass stem with absent grace. And as she spoke of her caseload, her passion ignited the air between us. It's not just law for me. It's justice. The underdog against the machine. Her eyes sparkled, fierce and unguarded, and I found myself leaning in, drawn to the fire she wielded so effortlessly. I shared snippets of my own path. The divorce a shadow I skirted. But she sensed it, her hand covering mine briefly, a touch that grounded and electrified. Pain carves us deeper, she said softly, her thumb brushing my knuckle. Makes the good parts shine brighter. The words hung, intimate, and I felt a sigh build in my chest, released in a whisper. For the first time in months, the loneliness ebbed, replaced by a tentative warmth. We talked until closing, the city's pulse syncing with ours. And as we stepped into the cool night, her arm linked through mine, I wondered if this was the hook fate had thrown to reel me back to life. Mornings in the office became a dance of stolen glances and shared coffees, the steam rising like unspoken questions between us. Angelica's desk sat across the open floor, a riot of color amid the grayscale suits. Stacks of briefs interspersed with potted succulents that thrived under her care. I'd catch her biting her lip in concentration, curls falling forward, and my focus would fracture, thoughts drifting to the curve of her smile over that last tequila. Work demanded precision, though, and I channeled the distraction into victories, closing another merger that padded my portfolio with stock options worth millions. Blackwell called me into his office again, this time with a grin that crinkled his eyes. You're on track for partner Hale. Keep this up, and you'll be running your own division. The words settled like sunlight on my skin, warming the places Tommy's absence had chilled. I was building an empire, brick by legal brick, and with each success, the divorce felt less like a defeat and more like a necessary fracture. One crisp autumn afternoon, we were assigned to co-lead a class action suit against a pharmaceutical giant, the kind of case that could reshape regulations and line our pockets. The war room buzzed with energy, whiteboards scrawled with timelines, and Angelica paced like a panther, her voice rising in fervent argument. We hit them on ethics first. Make the jury feel the human cost. I nodded, adding layers of financial leverage, our ideas weaving together seamlessly, a synergy that left the team nodding in approval. As the others filed out for lunch, she turned to me, eyes alight. We're good together. Soha. Admit it. Her teasing held an undercurrent, vulnerable and probing, and I laughed, a sound rusty from disuse, but genuine. Maybe we are. We grabbed sandwiches from the cart outside, perching on a bench in the plaza where palm trees swayed against the blue expanse. She unwrapped hers with deliberate slowness, mustard dotting her thumb, and when she licked it clean, my breath caught, a flush creeping up my neck. The air hummed with possibility, charged and still, until a colleague interrupted, shattering the moment. But the seed was planted, rooting deep. Evenings blurred the lines further. After a grueling deposition in a stuffy downtown conference room, where the air conditioner wheezed like an asthmatic witness, we escaped to a rooftop lounge in Soma, the city lights twinkling below like scattered diamonds. Wine flowed, red and robust, loosening tongues and inhibitions. Angelica leaned back, her blazer shed to reveal a silk camisole that clung in the humid breeze, and shared stories of her upbringing in the barrios of East LA. The single mother who taught her to fight with words when fists weren't enough. She said, "Mia, your voice is your sword." And I believed her. Her tone softened on the memory, a sigh threading through, and I reached across the table, my fingers lacing with hers. Skin on skin, warm and alive, sending sparks up my arm. "You wield it well," I murmured, my voice thick. She squeezed back, eyes locking with mine, and in that suspended breath, I saw the mirror of my own longing, raw and unfiltered. The kiss came naturally, tentative at first, her lips soft against mine, tasting of Merlot and courage. It deepened, hands cupping faces, the world narrowing to the press of her body, the hitch in her breath mirroring my own. We pulled apart gasping, foreheads touching, and she whispered, "I've wanted that since the first day." My heart pounded, a drumbeat of fear and thrill. But I nodded, pulling her closer. That night, in my apartment with its view of twinkling bridges, we explored each other with the hunger of the newly freed, bodies tangling in sheets that whispered secrets. Her touch ignited forgotten paths, sighs mingling with moans, and as dawn crept in, painting her skin gold, I held her tight, wondering if this was redemption or just another beautiful risk. The high carried us through weeks of trial prep, but cracks began to show under the pressure. Late nights in the office stretched into dawn, coffee turning bitter on my tongue, and Angelica's fire sometimes flared into frustration. One evening, as thunder rumbled over the bay, we clashed over strategy, her voice sharp. "You're too cautious, Sarah. This isn't corporate chess. It's lives." I fired back, exhaustion fraying my edges. "And rushing in blind loses everything we've built." The words hung heavy, her eyes flashing hurt before she stormed out, door clicking shut like a judgment. I sank into my chair, head in hands, a sob catching in my throat. Why did intimacy breed these storms? The rain lashed the windows, mirroring the turmoil inside, and I replayed the argument, guilt twisting like a knife. She was right. In part, my caution stemmed from scars, from Tommy's betrayals that taught me to guard every angle. But her passion challenged me, pushed me toward edges I'd long avoided. Hours later, my phone buzzed. Her text simple, "I'm sorry." Coffee? Relief flooded me, warm and forgiving, and I replied instantly. We met at an all-night diner, neon signs buzzing overhead, and over greasy eggs, apologies flowed. "I get scared," I admitted, voice low, losing control. She reached for my hand, thumb stroking soothing circles. "Then let's lose it together." The forgiveness mended us tighter, and as we walked back through slick streets, arms linked, the storm felt like a purge, clearing space for deeper trust. Success mounted, the case gaining headlines in the Chronicle, my name alongside hers in bold type. Bonuses rolled in, investments blooming into a nest egg that crossed the billion mark on a quiet Tuesday. My financial advisor's call pulling a disbelieving laugh from me. Billionaire. The word felt foreign, a crown too heavy. But it bought freedoms, a sleek condo in Pacific Heights, weekends away without glancing at dockets. Angelica and I stole one to Napa Valley, vineyards rolling golden under relentless sun. We wandered rows of grapes heavy with promise, her hand in mine, laughter bubbling as we sampled cabernets that stained our lips purple. In a secluded tasting room, stone walls cool against our backs, she pulled me into a dance. No music but the rustle of leaves. "This is us," she murmured, swaying slow, tangled and true. My chest tightened with emotion. A swell of something profound. And I kissed her there. Fierce and grateful. Bodies pressing close amid the scent of earth and ferment. That night, in a bed draped with mosquito netting, we loved with a tenderness that bordered on reverence. Whispers of futures mingling with gasps. But as she slept, curled against me, doubt crept in like fog. Could I sustain this? The intensity scared me. An echo of the marriage that had imploded. I sighed into the dark, tracing her spine, vowing to try. Back in the city, the trial loomed. A beast pacing in the shadows. We prepped relentlessly. Mock juries and rented hotel ballrooms. Her charisma winning over stand-ins every time. Yet tension simmered. Small fissures widening. A missed dinner here. A curt email there. And one night, after a fruitless strategy call, she arrived at my door with takeout and tired eyes. "We're drifting," she said, setting the bags down. I pulled her inside. The familiar ache rising. No. Just stretched thin. We ate on the floor. Backs against the couch. Sharing bites and silences that spoke volumes. Her head found my shoulder. A quiet confession slipping out. "I've never felt this before. It's terrifying." I turned, cupping her face. Our breath sinking. "Me too." The admission bridged us, leading to a night of slow exploration. Hands mapping familiar territories with renewed wonder. Dawn brought clarity. The trial just days away. And as we dressed in unison, suits mirroring our united front, I felt the bond solidify. A lifeline in the storm ahead. The courtroom in Federal District smelled of polished wood and stale coffee. The air thick with anticipation as the judge called the session to order. I stood at the plaintiff's table. Notes crisp in my grip. Heart steady despite the flutter in my veins. Angelica flanked me. Her presence an anchor. Our eyes meeting in a brief nod that conveyed volumes. We had this. The defense counsel. A slick shark from Chicago in a suit that screamed old money. Opened with a barrage of technicalities. But she dismantled him piece by piece. Her voice rising like a tide. Pulling the jury into the narrative of real people crushed by corporate greed. I followed with the financials. Charts projected on screens that painted the giant's sins in stark red ink. My words measured but piercing. Objections flew. The judge sustaining some with a gavel rap that echoed my pulse. But we pressed on. A tag team honed to perfection. Lunch recess came. And in the hallway, away from prying eyes, she squeezed my hand, whispering, "You were brilliant." The touch lingered. A spark amid the frenzy. And I leaned in for a quick brush of lips. Tasting salt and determination. Afternoons dragged into evenings. Witnesses parading through the box, grieving families with voices cracked by loss. Experts in lab coats reciting data like dirges. One mother, her hands twisted in her lap, testified about her daughter's final days. The drug's failure a shadow that stole her light. The room held its breath. And Angelica's eyes glistened. Her fist clenched under the table. I covered it with mine. A silent vow. And when cross-examination turned brutal, she rose like fury incarnate. Redirecting with questions that exposed the defense's hollow core. The jury leaned forward. Faces etched with empathy. And as we wrapped for the day, reporters swarmed outside. Flashbulbs popping like gunfire. We slipped away through a side door. Into the dusk where cable cars clanged in the distance. And collapsed into a nearby bar. Shoulders brushing on worn stools. "We're close," she said. Nursing a gin. Her foot hooking mine under the bar. I nodded. The weight easing in her orbit. "And when it's over?" The question slipped out. Laced with the fears I'd buried. She turned. Gaze steady. Then we breathed. Together. The promise settled deep. Chasing shadows. And we lingered there. The city's hum a lullaby to our weary bones. Verdict day dawned gray. Clouds hugging the hills like unspent tears. The courtroom filled early. Spectators murmuring like a hive. And we sat side by side. Fingers entwined beneath the rail. The foreman stood. Voice steady as he read the counts, liable on all. Damages in the tens of millions. Cheers erupted from the gallery. Hugs exchanged among our team. But I turned to her first. Our embrace fierce. Her body trembling against mine. "We did it," I breathed into her hair. Inhaling the scent of jasmine and victory. She pulled back. Eyes shining. "You did it." "We." The press conference blurred into a haze of microphones and sound bites. My words on empowerment and accountability ringing true. But beneath the poise, elation warred with exhaustion. That night, the firm threw a gala at a Nob Hill mansion. Chandeliers dripping light over tuxedos and gowns. I wore emerald silk that hugged my curves. And she, in sapphire that made her skin glow, found me amid the swirl. Dance with me, she commanded. Hand extended. And I followed. The orchestra swelling as we moved in sync. Bodies close. Whispers lost in the melody. Laughter bubbled up. Free and light. And for hours, the world was just us. Spinning in a cocoon of silk and song. But triumph's high faded into the grind of new cases. The billionaire life a double-edged blade. My schedule ballooned. Private jets whisking me to New York for board meetings. LA for celebrity divorces that paid in 7 figures. Angelica stayed grounded in San Francisco. Her caseload a tapestry of pro bono dreams. And distance gnawed at the edges of our connection. Phone calls grew clipped. Texts laced with longing. Miss your laugh, shed right at midnight. And ID reply with hearts. But the screen couldn't capture the warmth. One weekend, I flew back early. Surprising her at her tiny flat in the Castro. Rainbow flags fluttering from balconies like welcoming arms. She opened the door in sweats. Hair tousled. And launched into my arms. Legs wrapping around my waist as we tumbled inside. You're here, she gasped. Kisses frantic. And we made love on the living room rug. Urgent and reclaiming. Sighs punctuating the rhythm of reconnection. Afterward. Tangled in throw blankets. She traced patterns on my stomach. This life of yours. It's pulling you away. The words stung. Truth wrapped in vulnerability. And I held her tighter. Throat tight. Not from you. Never. But doubt lingered. A quiet specter. As we dozed to the sound of distant traffic. Winter crept in with rains that turned streets to mirrors. Reflecting my inner unrest. A high-profile case took me to Washington, D.C. Depositions in marble halls where power pulsed like a heartbeat. Alone in a Georgetown townhouse. Fire crackling in the grate. I pored over files by lamplight. But my mind wandered to her, the way her brow furrowed in thought. The soft curve of her hip under my palm. A call home. Her voice tinny through the line. How's the Beltway? Weary. But laced with that lilt I craved. Cold without you. Silence stretched. Heavy with unsaid fears. Then she sighed. Come back soon? Amor. We need to talk. The words chilled me deeper than the snow outside. And I ended the call with promises. Staring into the flames until they blurred. Back in the Bay Area. We met at a quiet bistro in North Beach. Fog muting the neon signs. Over pasta and Chianti. She laid it bare. I love you. Suha. But this pace. It's eroding us. Her eyes pleaded. Hand trembling on the tablecloth. And pain lanced through me. Sharp as a verdict gone wrong. I know. Am trying to scale back. Lies. Half-formed. Because the empire ID built demanded more. A voracious beast. We parted with a hug that ached. Her scent clinging to my coat like a ghost. The fracture widened during a trip to Chicago. Wind howling off the lake as I closed a merger that minted another fortune. Texts went unanswered. Her profile silent on social feeds. And panic clawed at my chest. A red-eye flight home. Turbulence mirroring my gut. And I arrived at her door at dawn. Pounding until she opened. Eyes puffy. Arms crossed. What are we doing? I blurted. Stepping inside uninvited. The apartment felt smaller. Air thick with tension. She paced. Words tumbling. You're everywhere but here. I can't keep waiting for scraps. Tears welled. Mine and hers. And I reached for her. But she stepped back. A chasm yawning. I thought you were different. That this was real. The accusation hit like a slap. Echoing Tommy's finality. And I sank onto the couch. Head bowed. It is real. I'm scared of losing it all. She knelt before me. Hands on my knees. Voice softening. Then fight for us. Not the money. The plea broke me. Sobs racking as she pulled me close. Our foreheads touching. Breaths mingling in ragged harmony. We cried together. The release cathartic. And slowly. Kisses followed. Tentative then desperate. Bodies seeking solace in familiarity. That afternoon blurred into lovemaking that felt like mending. Slow and sacred. Whispers of commitment sealing the wounds. As evening fell, wrapped in each other, I vowed silently to balance the scales. To let love claim its share. Spring unfurled with tentative blooms. Our rhythm adjusting like a tide turning. I delegated more. Hired a deputy to handle the jetsam cases. Carving space for mornings in bed with her. Coffee brewed slow while jazz played low. We took a road trip up the coast to Mendocino. Highway 1 winding like a ribbon through cliffs and kelp forests. Her hand on my thigh as we sang off-key to the radio. Stops at roadside stands for artichokes and avocados. Picnics on bluffs where whales breached in distant arcs. One evening, in a cliffside inn with waves crashing below, she turned to me by firelight. Ring box in hand. Simple gold band glinting. Marry me. Suha. Not the lawyer. You. Shock mingled with joy. Tears pricking as I nodded. Slipping it on with trembling fingers. Yes. God. Yes. We celebrated with champagne and caresses. The night a tapestry of laughter and sighs. Futures woven in the dark. Summer heat baked the city, turning asphalt to mirages. But our engagement cooled the fever. A steady glow amid the bustle. Planning woven to our days, venue hunts in wine country barns. Dress fittings in boutiques where mirrors reflected two women transformed. Eyes bright with shared dreams. Angelica's mother flew in from L.A. A sturdy woman with laugh lines deep as canyons. Enveloping me in hugs that smelled of cilantro and home. You make my girl shine, she said over tamales. Her approval a gift I tucked close. Tommy even sent a card. Brief and civil. Wishing well from his new life in Portland. The gesture closing a circle I hadn't known needed sealing. My wealth afforded indulgences. A private chef for rehearsal dinners. But it was the quiet moments that anchored us, evenings on the balcony. Her head on my lap as I read briefs aloud. Her fingers combing through my hair in lazy strokes. Yet shadows lingered. The law world's underbelly rearing in unexpected ways. A whistleblower case blew up. Drawing threats that had security shadowing my steps. Anonymous calls hissing venom through lines. Angelica fretted. Her protectiveness a fierce undercurrent. This is too much, she argued one night. Pacing our kitchen as rain sheeted the windows. I pulled her down. Legs entwined on the tile. It's temporary. And you're my shield. She relented with a huff. But worry etched her brow. And I hated the lines it carved. The climax came in a midnight meeting at a nondescript diner off Van Ness. Informant sliding across a drive packed with damning files. Tires screeched outside. Shadows lunging. And chaos erupted, shouts. A scuffle that left me bruised but unbowed. Angelica arriving minutes later. Face ashen as she bundled me into a cab. Never again, she whispered. Icing my knuckles in the ER glow. The case resolved with indictments. Justice served cold. But the scare reshaped me. Priorities sharpening like a honed blade. I stepped back further. Mentoring juniors while chasing passions long sidelined, pro bono clinics in the Tenderloin. Where stories of struggle echoed Angelica's fire. Fall painted the leaves in fire. Our wedding a week away. And nerves fluttered like confetti. Rehearsal at the vineyard. Rows of vines heavy with harvest. Family mingling under string lights. Toasts flowed. Her brothers ribbing good-natured. My few kin from Seattle nodding approval. Alone in the guest house after. She traced my collarbone. Voice soft. Ready for forever? Doubt flickered. Old ghosts of failure. But I kissed it away. With you? Always. The ceremony dawned golden. Guests scattered on hay bales as we exchanged vows under an arch of wildflowers. Her words a poem of resilience and grace. You taught me home isn't a place, but a heartbeat next to mine. Tears blurred my vision. My promise simple, I choose you. Every dawn. Ring slid on. Kisses sealed amid cheers. And the reception swirled into joy, dances barefoot in the grass. Cakes layered with lavender. Stars wheeling overhead as we slipped away. Honeymoon in the Keys? Florida sun a balm to city-weary souls. Hammocks swaying between palms. Snorkels revealing coral kingdoms alive with color. We swam naked in hidden coves. Laughter echoing off mangroves. Nights spent tracing constellations on sweat-slick skin. Back home. Life settled into a new cadence. My firm thriving under lighter rains. Hers blooming with grants for legal aid. We adopted a rescue dog. A scruffy mutt named Luna who curled at our feet during movie marathons. Her tail thumping approval. Challenges came. As they do, a miscarriage that hollowed us for months. Grief a tide that pulled relentless. But we navigated it hand in hand. Therapy sessions in sunlit rooms rebuilding our shores. "Well, try again," she murmured one gray morning. Belly to belly in bed. And I nodded. Hope a fragile bloom. Years layered like sediment. Our love a river carving canyons. I mentored at law schools. Sharing stories of reinvention. While she led a foundation fighting inequities. Her speeches rallying crowds. Our home filled with artifacts, photos from Napa. A vial of Mendocino sand. Tommy's card tucked in a drawer as a reminder of grace. One anniversary. Atop Coit Tower with the city sprawling below. She leaned into me. Wind tousling her now silvered curls. "Worth the detour?" I smiled. Arm around her waist. The view a testament to paths crossed. Every mile. Sighs came easier now. Breaths shared in quiet domesticity, cooking paella on Sundays. Walks where Luna tugged ahead. Arguments that ended in make-up kisses. The billionaire trappings faded to backdrop. Wealth a tool for good. Not God. In the end, it wasn't the courts or the fortunes that defined us. But the tender unravelings. The choice to stay when unraveling threatened. Angelica's hand in mine during chemo when cancer whispered her name a decade on. My voice reading her favorites as she drifted. Her final sigh a release into peace. I sat vigil. Heart fracturing yet whole. Knowing our story etched deeper than any verdict. Now. In the hush of mornings alone. I sip coffee on the balcony. Luna at my feet. And feel her echo in the breeze. Love, I learned, isn't possession but presence. A light that lingers long after the flame. And in that humanistic glow, I rebuild. One grateful breath at a time.